So this is the second video for our discussion on Louise Glück's Circe's Grief. Now, in that first video, we talked a little about the Odyssey and the kind of images that Odysseus had, and Penelope and Circe through the tale of Odysseus. Now, for this poem, we finally get to see Circe through her own eyes, or through her own, we hear her through her own voice. And the reason why we say that is because, with the first line, in the end, I made myself known to your wife. She makes use of I, and she talks directly to Odysseus, and we don't get that from the kind of Circe that we get from the Odyssey, because we know Circe only through the retelling of her story by Odysseus, right? So this is the first time that we get to hear Circe speaking for herself. Now, in the next few lines, we see how she manages this rage that she has for Odysseus. And she goes directly to the wife of Odysseus. You hit them, obviously, where it hurts, or their weak points. Now, she says, I'd announced myself to your wife. And this is not the act of, because she's essentially the other woman, third party. And in, I guess, proper societies, what they do is that they kind of hide themselves, because that's what propriety calls for. But you know, she's not just any third party; she is a god. So she goes in there in the home of Penelope, which can be seen as an act of invasion, because her home is her is her fort. And Circe just struts in there. She doesn't actually go there, but her voice gets in there, and she basically manages to ruin their relationship with very minimal effort. It's kind of the ideal situation, right? You get maximum effect for very little effort. All right, so anyway, so this is an act of aggression. She asserts herself as a powerful god. Um, and then she does it with very little effort. What she does is that it's just a voice, a disembodied voice. I guess she whispers something, and it acts as a sort of a seed for doubt that gets planted deep within the mind of Penelope. And this thing, with anyone, with whether it's a man or a woman, you know, when you start doubting someone, it usually doesn't start from something that has hard evidence. Sometimes it starts with just a gut feeling, or you can tell, or you feel that something's wrong, and then a small thing happens which may or may not be directly related to that hunch that you have, but then because you have that small little thing that isn't uh, that doesn't have any objective source like what we have here, um, it still is enough to snowball into something monstrous until at the end of it you realize that you just basically destroyed your relationship because of a doubt that you had that started from something that has no objective source. And that's what Circe is doing here. All right. And the thing is, it made Penelope pause. What in the middle of her working? What was she working on? The loom. What the thing that she was weaving, which has long been seen as her sign of devotion. Remember what she did in order to stave off the suitors that she had, while waiting for Odysseus to come back, was to weave that death shroud, which she would undo later in the night and then do all over again in the morning. And since that was her sign of devotion, and she heard this voice, or this sound that Circe made, it stopped. Well, she stopped for a little bit, okay, which means that the devotion, that long held devotion for Odysseus, was finally beginning to crack. And Circe knows that. So when she says, I doubt that she will return to her loom with what she knows now, she's basically saying, I doubt if she's going to still be as devoted to you once she knows what you have been doing And what did he do? He stayed with her for one more year instead of continuing with her journey. Not to mention that whole thing with Calypso, but that thing with Calypso, he was basically just held prisoner. In that one year, well, Odysseus claims that she seduced him, but he still stayed for one year. So yeah, Circe knows what she's doing here. She is definitely destroying this with very little effort as possible, right? And then um, when she um, when she tells or when she talks to Odysseus, she directly confronts Odysseus by saying, "When you see her again, you tell her that this is how a god says goodbye." So she is not hiding away. She's not. There's not anymore that quiet pain and torture that you keep to yourself that we first saw with Emily Dickinson's After Great Pain. Here you have basically the wrath of a god and so much feeling, mostly anger, so much feeling right there. And she's not hiding herself away. She is also directly confronting the source of her pain, who was Odysseus. She directly addresses him. Okay, when you get home to your wife, you tell her that this is how God says goodbye. Because remember, in the end, she'll let him go, right? But she's not going to let him go without any kind of trouble. Because she says, okay, if I'm in her head forever, I'm in your life forever. That's how she manages to stay with um, Odysseus, because he will definitely remember the woman who destroyed it all. So right. So what she's saying is that I will destroy everything that you hold dear, and you will know that it is me who caused all this trouble. Then when she does that, she basically imprints herself into the soul of Odysseus. Clever. So now the question is, why did she have to confront him? Over what? Why is she so sad? Why is she so angry? Angry? Why is there grief? Right? So there's sadness because she can't have him. Right? So he's going away and she can't have him. She can't make him stay. Right? But the thing is, he did stay, but only for a year. Right? And then Odysseus's excuse is that, well, she made me, she seduced me. But that kind of doesn't make sense, because if she's now sad she can't have him, then couldn't she have just seduced him to stay forever? Because she could. Actually, there's another poem by Louise Glück. It's called Circe's Power. You can just look that up. That's where she talks about the possibility of her power and what she could have made him do. But anyway, so that's beside the point. But what we can get from that is that she's perfectly capable of making him stay forever, of keeping her there as a prisoner, almost like Calypso. But she didn't. So why did she not use her power against him to make him stay forever, not just for a year? If it was true that she really did seduce him to make him stay for that one whole year, right? Or uh, okay, so but what if we go with the other scenario? Yes, she did seduce him, but only for a year. So there's a time frame for her seduction. So okay, I'll seduce you for a year because let's go have fun, let's go party for a year, and then after that, I let you go. Also, again, that doesn't make sense. Because if that was her plan all along, to have fun with him for a year, then she shouldn't be really sad about him leaving, if that had been her plan all along. So, so if there's any reason why any person is sad at someone's parting or leaving, it's because they want that person to stay. And also the same reason why she never used her power against him to make him stay forever is probably because she wanted him to stay of his own volition, because she loved him. And him staying was um, tantamount to him returning that love for her. And this is what's most infuriating, because he did stay, but for only a year. Probably just party and have fun. And then later on, use her so that he could get back home. That's that's probably why she's infuriated right now. Right? And also, there is no force on earth that could have a woman love someone enough to let them go because it'll make that person happy. And that's love. And Odysseus probably did not deserve it. All right, so anyway, so yeah, so that answers the question why she's grieving. All right, so that finishes Louise Glück's Circe's grief. Now let's get to know the poet a little bit more. We have here Louise Glück, being born in April 22, 1943, so she's definitely still alive, not one of our dead poets. She was born in Long Island, New York, and she studied in Sarah Lawrence College and Columbia University. She now works as a writer in residence at Yale University. Is also lectured all over the United States. A poet critic, Rosanna Warren, spoke of her power to distance the eye from being the subject and object of attention. So when you, and also how she's able to impose a discipline on herself uh, with the way that she can talk about something that should be personal, because in Meadowlands she talks about the breakdown of her marriage, and that is definitely something very personal. But because she was able to use different mouthpieces through Odysseus, Circe, and Penelope, and other mythological figures, she was able to universalize the ending of her marriage into the ending of everyone else's marriage. So that was the power of Louise Glück as Rosanna Warren saw it, and it also holds true because Louise Glück also um, doesn't really like talking about personal matters when it comes to discussing her poetry. So she basically lets the poem speak for itself. All right, so she's won many awards, but the first one of the first awards that she won, and also an important award to take note of, is the her winning the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1993 for her first poetry collection, The Wild Iris. And The Meadowlands, the one where you have Circe's grief, um, grief is in, was her sophomore album, no, her second poetry collection. All right, so that's it for Circe's grief and Louise Glück. Go to the next video for, what do we have? Derek Walcott's Love After Love.